Hey, what's up everybody? Hopefully you're out there finding deals and writing winning offers. If not, you're probably experiencing some of the same issues many other buyers are facing here in 2021. With so much demand for single-family housing because of COVID and low interest rates, this has made investing difficult for novice investors. So if you've locked in on a few properties, let's discuss some creative options to make your offer stand out, such as with your initial deposit amount, contingency removal, covering seller costs at closing, and making the seller an investment partner. Now let's dig in and talk about how we can make your offer stand out even if it's not the highest dollar amount submitted. So if you're ready, let's do it. I think everyone understands where we are with respect to how the market's moving at this point in 2021. In many metros, sellers are reaping the benefits of low inventory and pent-up demand on the part of buyers to lock in a new low rate and purchase a home right now. With that in mind, it makes our job as investors, or even traditional buyers for that matter, much harder when it comes to making a winning offer on a property. So let's cover a few items that can make your offer look more appealing to a seller. The first step is to show your intent to win with your deposit amount. Many investors will only submit an initial deposit of about 3%. So if your purchase price is $100K, then you're only depositing $3,000 into escrow with your initial offer. With this understanding, at some point you will need to come up with $10K at minimum in this scenario to cover your share of the purchase price. Why not make your initial deposit $10,000? Many investors will probably say that's too high of a deposit. If you've done your research and feel strongly about the potential return on the property, why not submit the entire $10K? This shows the seller that you're serious about the property and not just providing the minimum to determine at a later date if you really want it. By taking this step, one must be sure that you've done a good deal of your due diligence before making an offer. Don't get into contract before understanding whether the property is even worthy of the investment. Even though you aren't really providing more money than what's going to be required to purchase the property, you are showing that you are serious about your intent. So the next step is to only ensure that you're using contingencies that are applicable to protecting yourself. I generally do all of my inspections or gain understanding on the condition of the property before writing an offer. If you approach your potential investment from this standpoint, you won't need to have an inspection contingency. The remaining contingencies that are most important in a transaction are the appraisal and loan contingencies. Technically, your lender knows that you are purchasing a property that isn't sound and in most cases needs work. So a loan contingency and an appraisal contingency are almost redundant. Understanding your lender's underwriting practices will be key here. If you require an appraisal as a part of their underwriting process, then I'd only have an appraisal contingency. This will cover you in the event that you have a lender that gets skittish during the process. It also allows you to go back to the seller if the property doesn't appraise for a value that's more in line for a purchase price. Another check to make is if you're using an appraisal contingency is whether the appraisers in the area are being too conservative with property valuation. Don't get caught with your pants down because your appraisal comes in lower than you expected, requiring you to come to the table with more cash on the front end if you don't have to. If your lender doesn't typically rely on an appraisal, then only carrying a loan contingency will likely be sufficient. But I strongly recommend you understand your lender's comfort level before writing an offer. If you do this, you'll know whether you'll need either contingency before submitting your offer. Removing all contingencies with an offer can be like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. But your due diligence should have helped you understand if you're making the right decision or if you're going to get killed on impact. The next way to make your offer seem more appealing is by covering some of the seller's costs at closing. This means covering escrow fees or taxes. I would not recommend covering any selling costs such as the commissions to brokers, as this could be costly. Covering escrow fees is an easy win because those fees are typically minimal in comparison to the other fees a seller covers. Also, declining a home warranty should be standard unless you plan to live in the home for a period of time while preparing it to be a rental. If you're flipping the home, decline any warranty as you're likely going to be making repairs that will make the need for a warranty unnecessary. Taxes are another area you can make your offer more appealing. In California, we typically split transfer taxes on the transaction. Taking on a larger share of that cost could help your offer look more appealing. This may add a few extra $1,000s to your closing costs, but your initial cost estimate should help you understand if you can carry this expense. Just remember that you can always add the cost back into the list price when you go back onto the market. Our goal is to get an accepted offer, and this is one way that can help. Finally, some sellers are interested in getting the most out of the transaction when selling. Part of your due diligence should be finding out how much is owed by the seller on the property. If they own the property free and clear, there could be an opportunity to ask the seller to carry a portion of the purchase price and pay them interest on this amount. This won't work in all situations, but there are times when a dilapidated property won't net the seller the profit that they really want. If you projected a decent return, then sharing that with the seller could be an easy way to help them get more on the back end of the transaction and your offer accepted. Be careful with this, as some sellers may see it as an opportunity to take a larger share of your profit with a counteroffer. My advice to you is only offer what you can afford to give, or maybe a little less. Remember that buying a property is a negotiation, and sometimes you may have to go back to the table to get the seller on board, but it shouldn't be to your detriment. Try to use this as a last resort, as it may require you to have your credit report pulled by the seller and gives you another person you're responsible to pay when the property is sold. This is not a lever I would pull if you're using the property as a rental home, as it will mean more debt that you'll need to cover through your rental income. So this is a short summary of some aggressive tactics to make your offer more appealing. As always, you'll need to do your due diligence to ensure that the property actually will provide the return needed to recover any additional costs to get your offer accepted. If you're only doing 1 or 2 transactions per year, you may want to wait for a more ideal buying scenario. Every dollar matters, and giving more to the seller means your work as an investor only gets harder. So be sure that you can recoup any additional dollars paid at the acquisition of your property when it's time to sell and move to your next investment. One thing to note here is that these tactics are only going to be for investors. I wouldn't recommend these for traditional buyers unless you have the cash to be able to cover any decision you make. So just be very careful if you're not an investor and you're seeing this content and thinking that these tactics could help you get your offer accepted as a traditional buyer. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. Take care and be safe.